our our announcements and getting the discussion started, and then we'll uh stop like halfway through. Um yeah, and I'm getting oh, go ahead, Scott.
I have a tech question, and you guys are savvy
Okay.
about this stuff, but I wanted to ask, and this may be part of what we're talking about right now. I was on a Zoom call last night, and there were people that were able to zoom in and record, do AI notes without being present in the session. And I did not realize that you can do that. I suppose you can do that now with if you subscribe to a service of some sort. You can just sign up for the session and people will take notes and things. I don't, do you have any policy in place that says, well, maybe that's not such a good idea, or is that something, we want to think about
That's
if
actually a
people
really
are
good
stopping?
point. We
Yeah.
can add that to these guidelines too. I think that'd be a good thing. I have had other groups and organizations stop those kinds of bots that do that in Zoom, so we could. I think it's a nice feature for some people, and there's accessibility that it can help with people who are in the room taking notes and things like that. So that's a consideration. And I think the other side of that is the recording piece and the fact that we aren't recording informal conversations. And so maybe for informal conversations, we shouldn't have something like that that can kind of record the conversation. But people can take notes themselves too. So I actually think that's a really good discussion for what we're talking about today, and I wonder if we could save that for the like discussion piece of this,
Yeah.
if that'd be all right
Yeah.
with you, Scott.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Um, I think there's some things to consider, like accessibility, like you said, Katie. So let's hold that deeper conversation for after. Very good point, though. Um, I was gonna jump into announcements, but is there um any other thoughts before we do that?
And just for
I
those
will,
who joined us after, we are recording right now to talk about the community guidelines and the process we're taking, and then we will stop recording for discussion on those.
great. Well, with that, I will open up the floor to announcements. See if anyone has any updates they want to share.
I will note the New York State policy efforts are still chugging along. I think it's going to pass this legislative session, but still an open question. And I think we'll know in 6 weeks or so if we actually get funding for our small appropriation.
Good to know. Thanks, Don. I've been trying to follow along with all of that. That's
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, I'm not muted. I am so sorry. I thought I opened this to anyone with the link can view it. So I apologize that people haven't been able to view this before today. I'm
no,
opening it up now.
Katie, I think I shared an old version. Don't I think it's because I put the wrong link in the chat. So,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
sorry. There people haven't been able I think the link that I shared people haven't been able to open. So, if you want to maybe if you could share the newer link in the chat.
Yes, I have that right now. I can share that.
Okay. Thank you.
And
Um
it is open for viewing, so yes. Just to kind of keep the activity in the document down, that's why I put the form out there for folks to give feedback on it. So you can't edit the document itself, but I'll put the link for the form in the chat as well if you want to give any feedback anonymously that way. I'm sorry, let's keep on with announcements. Sorry, I
yeah.
was just reacting to the chat.
No, I'm glad you said something because I was trying to get the I was trying to get the new link up. Yeah, Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know about a presentation we're having next Tuesday evening at Florida Climate Educators Network, and I'll drop a flyer in the chat room. We're having someone who's actually speaking about a field lab just north of Lake Okeechobee in the Kissimmee River. I know this group, I don't know if we got anybody else on Florida right now at the time, but if you're ever down in the state and you've never been on the Kissimmee River to see this amazing restoration, which has gotten a lot of federal funding uh, to help with the Everglades, it's an incredible project. It's many miles, and this is a boat trip that you can actually join if you're in the area. So we're going to have the field lab slash boat captain on next Tuesday to talk about this. So it might be something to actually even bring students to Florida to jump on that field trip because it's such an incredible experience. So just wanted to make that out, put that out there.
Great. Nice. Busy, looks like it's a busy couple months. There's a UCAR workshop on April 10th. NCSE has a workshop on the 21st.
We only have
Yeah.
10 teachers signed up right now, so if you know anyone in that area, finding that Montana is not, super populated, so 10 teachers might be great. I don't know.
That's fair.
We just had that realization the other day. We're like, whoa, well, the signups are really low. And then we were also like, how many people actually live there?
Yeah.
And then very
That's-
exciting, Michigan just launched a Michigan hub of subject to climate. So yeah, that's very exciting in my area.
Nice. Great. Anything else from folks? Yeah, go ahead.
My virtual workshop, thanks, Gina. The virtual workshop, I'm looking for one more teacher. I got one teacher, and I need a second teacher. We'd love to showcase teachers that are doing climate action with their students, and just to do a short presentation about what they're doing. So if you know of anybody at the secondary of their time during the virtual, hopefully you can hear me.
You're breaking up a little bit. I think we got a good portion of that, Robert. But maybe,
I'll type it in the chat.
yeah, I was gonna say maybe if you put it in the chat, then we can all see it. Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Um, well, I'm just gonna put this in the chat. We have some very, very, very exciting webinars that CLEAN is doing coming up in March and April. This will be particularly exciting because they are joint webinars with OER Commons, which has been a longstanding partner with CLEAN. They've syndicated to our website for a while now. And we're going to have some pretty big names. Anthony Leiserowitz from the Yale Climate Connections and also Catherine Hayhoe, which are like two huge names. I'm very, very, very excited. They'll be joining us. So the link to the registration is in my chat there. Please share it. We're starting this week to do a pretty big marketing push on this, so you might see it mentioned a lot just because it's a very big deal, I think. Very excited. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Well, first, I want to thank you, Gina, for participating last week in our webinar. Speaking of webinars for Worldwide Climate and Justice Education Week, Gina not only did our 9 a.m., but even our 8 p.m. Webinar talking about CLEAN, and it was a really fabulous presentation. So thank you, Gina.
Yeah, thank you.
And we also had subject to climate. And then this morning we had a really good presentation by Mike Hoffman from Cornell on basically how do you use changes in food related to climate change to get students and others talking about climate change. And he will be repeating that presentation at 8 o'clock Eastern tonight. So I will put the registration link for that. And even if you can't come at 8 o'clock, if you register, we will send you a copy of the recording. That's it.
Thank you. And you've got a couple, the webinars that you're doing, David, are every are they
Every
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Every Tuesday,
Yeah,
every
every
week.
Tuesday through mid-April, through Climate and Justice Education Week. So on different topics. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah. So
great.
I'm hoping to get another one on the climate games in a couple of weeks. I've been reaching out to some people, so I think that next week is going to be more sort of people just reporting on what their plans are and asking questions. But then in 2 weeks, it'll be hopefully another presentation on climate games. And I should also say that the Cell workshop group on climate change is kicking into gear. We had a meeting last week and are talking about how do we consolidate. There are at least 3 different lists of climate games, and how do we consolidate them, and what kind of groupings we want to have of people who are interested in climate change. So I think that it's going to be a really good result of the investment from a cell.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really, really excited about those groups starting up. It's gonna be, I'm very excited to see what happens with everyone. So, um, thanks, David. Um, lots of exciting announcements. Anything else folks that just joined want to share or?
Yeah, I'll just speak up about the climate change electives, high school electives panel that I put in the chat, March 19th at 7 p.m. I think we've got 5 or 6 teachers on the panel, but the link is there. And these are all folks who are already teaching an elective that mostly they designed, and join us.
Lynn, it's good to see you. Um, yeah, and Amber Davis, who Lynn mentioned in the chat, has been hey Lynn, um on clean calls with us before, calling in from Tanzania, which is very, very cool. Um, so it'll be good to see more follow-up about that. Yeah. All right. Last call before we move on to the community guidelines. Okay. So I think actually what might be best is I'm just gonna share my screen. So this is the clean community guidelines, and Katie's gonna help me fill in some gaps that I miss here, but so basically as a network, we have been feeling for a long time like this is something that we should establish and talk about, and have people agree upon. So we wanted to make sure that it was seen widely by everyone and that everyone had an opportunity for input. So we wrote down these guidelines that we think make sense for a community, and then Katie also set up a Google form if you want to provide feedback. So these are the links that she's been sharing in the chat. The feedback form is really brief. It's just like, do you agree? And also, are there any changes that you would like to make? And these are pretty brief. It sounds like there are some things that we might add to this, like the AI transcription conversation, but we really tried to keep it more positive instead of saying like, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this. I know that we were very intentional about um, encouraging curiosity and suspending judgment, and then what to do if you feel like something negative is happening. It has all of our contact info down here. But I mean, they're pretty standard. We've read a few different community guidelines from other networks that we're a part of and tried to synthesize them. So hopefully we hit on some of the major points that are pretty average and expected for this type of thing. But we did just want to open up the floor to letting people express other thoughts and opinions. But yeah, Katie, am I missing anything?
I'll just add that the organizations we looked at for this included AGU and the USG CRP has some community guidelines for all of their events. And then there's a group within our CEEE, PSECA, which is the Polar Science Early Career. I can't remember the
Community.
last two. Community
Yeah,
office,
community
thank you,
office.
Anna. They were sort of putting together some of these at a similar timing, so we coordinated with them. So yeah, we tried to kind of look at some other, as Gina said, networks that were similar and or that we've been tapped into as climate education folks, to get a sense of what goes into these kinds of community guidelines. And I think we tried to incorporate a lot of those things in terms, these are also, you know, whenever we have events, and like Excels in the past is one that we've hosted. In the first Excels, we tried to kind of do something similar. We were asking folks in the discussions before we had discussions, like what are the kinds of things we want to follow to make sure the discussions are positive. So we utilized some of that background. So yeah, I think overall we were trying to kind of like make this a space for positive interactions and professional interactions. And this is the list that we came up with, but as with all of these community guidelines, we want them to be community guidelines. So we do want feedback. As I said, the only reason I didn't open this document up for editing is just because it could get too busy. So I will collect feedback through the forum, but we also want to have an open forum for discussion today. Make sure, is there anything we're missing? Is there anything that shouldn't be here that we added? But just really trying to foster that level of positive and professional interaction for everybody. And Anna, you took a look at these before we sent them out to the whole list, so maybe I'll throw it to you and see if Gina and I miss anything around our aims on as the sort of like facilitators of the CLEAN group.
No, I think you did a great job summarizing. I think everyone is aware that, especially in these times now, we have to be careful and just provide guidance that allows everyone to communicate in a way that is allows us to continue to work together. And I know we wanted to just record the initial part of this. So I think that summarizes it really well. Thanks, Katie and Gina.
Yeah, that's a really, thank you. That's a good context, Anna, is we've actually been working on this prior to some of the changes that have been happening that are affecting CLEAN through our funder right now. But it is good timing to think about this in the context of we do want CLEAN to continue as an organization and to be able to get that funding. And there are some concerns right now around language that is used in our project and things like that. So this is a good time to bring this up. I think with that, Gina, maybe we can stop